Hello and welcome to a new weekly Bible study. When I was asked whether I could do a Bible study that could be put on our church's website, I said, sure. I like doing Bible studies, so no problem. But I wasn't really thinking about the fact that this was going to be a very different kind of Bible study than I'm used to. I like being a facilitator. I like sitting together in a group and discussing the Bible and learning from each other instead of being a lecturer. But, interaction is a little bit difficult right now, isn't it? We've suddenly found ourselves in a world that is different. It's kind of uncharted territory, at least for us. Our new situation is full of challenges, and it can be unsettling, maybe scary, definitely difficult to maneuver, and I'm sure for many of us, lonely. So in this weekly Bible study, I want us to look together at stories from the Bible that may give us some guidance and some hope in the situation that we find ourselves in right now. And today I want us to look at a story where the people of Israel find themselves in a situation that is unsettling and scary. And go ahead and turn to Exodus chapter 14 while I kind of lay out what had happened. So the Israelites at this point are stuck between the Red Sea and the army of Pharaoh. It's a familiar story. The Israelites had been slaves of the king of Egypt, Pharaoh, for many years, and they had been treated very harshly. And you can read all about that in the first 13 chapters of the book of Exodus. And definitely read it if you're not entirely familiar with it. And the people cry out to God, and they ask him to deliver them. And so God hears them, and he sends Moses to negotiate with Pharaoh. But Pharaoh's not about to let his slaves go. So God unleashes 10 plagues, one after the other, on Egypt. And finally, Pharaoh gives in, and he tells the Israelites to pack up and go, to leave the country. And they do. And God leads them through the desert until they find themselves at the shore of the Red Sea. And God tells them to camp there, facing the sea. Now, in the meantime, Pharaoh has changed his mind. He and his servants say to each other, "What is this that we have done, that we have let Israel go from serving us? Our workers, we let them go. What were we thinking?" And so Pharaoh and his army go after the Israelites. So then we get to Exodus chapter 14, verse 10. And let me read a couple of verses here, starting in verse 10. When Pharaoh drew near, the people of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians were marching after them, and they feared greatly. And the people of Israel cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Is it because there are no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? What have you done to us in bringing us out of Egypt? Is not this what we said to you in Egypt? Leave us alone that we may serve the Egyptians? For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness." The people realize that they're stuck. They have nowhere to go. The sea is in front of them, and Pharaoh's army is behind them. And so they panic. They lash out at Moses. They complain. They try to find something or someone to blame for their situation. Now let me ask you, how do you react under stress? How did you react when it became clear to us that the coronavirus was really more than a cold? When COVID-19 completely changed our lives, when churches, schools, businesses closed, did you panic, as many did? Did you complain? Did you lash out at others? Maybe the government, China? Or did you react more like Moses? Let's look at his reaction. Verse 13. And Moses said to the people, "Fear not, stand firm, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent." So while the people panic, and, well, let's just say they buy all the toilet paper that they can find, Moses seems strangely unfazed by the crisis that they find themselves in. Because let's be honest, the situation is a crisis. They are in danger. So how is that possible? What is Moses' secret? Well, friends, Moses remembers. Moses remembers what God has just done for his people. God had heard their cries when they were in Egypt. He had shown his power through the 10 plagues. God had delivered them from their slavery. God had led them out of captivity and through the desert. The people had seen God at work in their lives, and yet now, under pressure, they forget. And how is it with us? Where are we? Where are you and I in this story? You see, the words that Moses speaks to the Israelites are also for us today in our crisis. Fear not, stand firm, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent. Be silent. Be still, and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10 tells us. Trust in God, Moses says. You know his power. You know his faithfulness. You know his love for you. God is still at work. God is still in control. And Moses' words are as true for us today as they were for the Israelites. They're words of comfort, meant for the Israelites, but also for us. And when we read on, we see that the Israelites do experience that God is in charge. God creates a path through the Red Sea so that the Israelites can walk to safety. The Egyptians, however, are washed away and drowned by those same waters. On the title page of the Genevan Bible, the Bible that the Puritans brought with them to our country, there's a depiction of the Israelites trapped between the Red Sea and the Egyptians, and the words that Moses spoke. The Lord shall fight for you. Therefore, hold you your peace. It was there as a constant reminder to them to put their trust in God, no matter their circumstances, in good times and in bad times. So even now, in this uncertain time, we can trust that God is with us. God is in control. You see, it wasn't bad luck that the Israelites found themselves stuck between that Red Sea and the army of Egypt. It wasn't bad luck at all. God himself had brought them there so that he could show both the Israelites and the Egyptians that he is Lord. The Egyptians, well, they thought that the Israelites didn't know what they were doing. And the Israelites thought that Moses didn't know what he was doing. But God had planned the whole thing to reveal his power once again and in a mighty way. You know, God used that same strategy when he sent his son to the cross. To Satan, it must have seemed like Jesus had no idea what he was doing. His ministry seemed to be totally unsuccessful. And it seemed like weakness that Jesus, the Son of God, allowed himself to be handed over to sinful men who stripped him, who beat him, and then crucified him. When Jesus died, Satan must have thought that he had defeated Jesus and that Jesus' mission had failed. But no, the cross was not a defeat, it was a victory. By making atonement on the cross for our sins, Jesus gained eternal victory over sin, death, and Satan. God himself had planned it that way. No bad luck, but a plan. God had delivered the Israelites. But the moment that things got tough, they lost hope and trust. They got scared. They expected the worst. Friends, this Bible story urges us on not to make the same mistake. Just like the Israelites, we need to remember that the God we serve is a God who is in control of our world, our destiny, our lives. A God who is faithful and a God who will never desert us. To him, the situation that we're in, well, it was not a surprise. This worldwide pandemic, it didn't catch him off guard. And so, friends, in the midst of our crisis, in the midst of a time that can be very challenging and a time that we cannot wait to get through, amidst all the uncertainty that the coronavirus has brought, let us also heed Moses' words. Let us stand our ground, quietly waiting to see what God will do, because God is in control and he is faithful, full of love and mercy. Friends, I wish you a good week and I hope to see you next week.